What is up everyone, Diluc here with a new Genshin Impact video. When it comes to Claymore choices for Diluc, the game offers plenty. So today we're going to compare the best Claymores to optimize your DPS on Diluc. I will be looking at 3 Claymores in particular, the Wolf's Gravestone, the Skyward Pride, and the Blackcliff Slasher. Other Claymores such as the Unforged or Serpent Spine won't be showcased because I don't own them. From what I've read online, both of those weapons are viable, but they have passives that don't synergize well with Diluc. Now that we have this out of the way, let's talk about the weapons I will personally compare. Okay, so first of all we have the Wolf's Gravestone, which has 608 base attack, an attack percent substat, which is also increased by the passive for a total of 69.6% attack. If you hit an opponent below 30% HP, all of your party will gain 40% attack. So in total, you can actually get 109.6% attack just from having the weapon, which is why it's often considered being its best in slot. It is super consistent, you don't have any loss on your substat, and you get a huge boost of attack. For the second Claymore, we have the Skyward Pride, which has one of the highest base attack, 674. The substat is Energy Recharge, which isn't a total loss because the passive is actually tied to the burst, so you need the Energy Recharge for it to work. I have a Refinement 2, but there's not a big difference between Refinement 1 and Refinement 2. At Refinement 1, it increases all your damage by 8%, and after using your burst, your normal and charge attacks will create vacuum blades that does 80% of your attack as damage. Those vacuum blades hit physical damage and they can crit, so this is something you need to keep in mind. I would run crit rate with this weapon, as high as crit rate as you can, so that the vacuum blades can crit. The good thing about this weapon really is the base attack, making it one of the hardest hitting claymores, but it really lacks the offensive substat. Last but not least, we have the Blackcliff Slasher, which is a 4-star weapon, yes, but it has a very comparable damage output as a 5-star weapon. Its base attack is 510, which may seem low, but it's a very good trade-off for the substat, which is crit damage. 55.1% crit damage at level 90. This is a very nice counterpart to the crit rate that Diluc gets upon leveling up. The passive of this weapon really makes it stronger by the amount of enemies you eliminate. At Refinement 5, after defeating an opponent, the attack is increased by 24% for 30 seconds, and this can stack up to 3 times, so it brings you a 72% attack boost. Granted, you need enemies to get this passive activated, so you cannot really use it against bosses to its full potential. However, this is a very strong weapon for domains, abyss, and open world exploration. Next up, now that you guys are familiar with weapon stats, I will show some damage comparisons to establish which weapon is the best. For the elemental skill, I will be testing it on a level 91 Ruin Guard with all weapons. For the elemental burst, I will use a melt reaction against neutral enemies from a domain, and in both cases, I will show the fully stacked R5 Blackcliff. So let's see how it goes and how they compare. After seeing those numbers, the gap between Blackcliff Slasher and Wolf's Gravestone is smaller than expected. Also, it is clear that the Skyward Pride is underperforming when its passive isn't used. Its Energy Recharge substat simply cannot compete with attack percent or crit damage when it comes to the high burst damage of the elemental reaction. I would rather equip this sword on a sub DPS Zhongyun or a main physical carry like Razor or Xingyan to get the most out of it. With that said, this weapon is still very fun to use with Diluc to charge your burst quicker and to amplify your basic attack, but it isn't enough to compete with the other contenders. We are now left with a simple choice between Blackcliff and Gravestone. As you can see from the gameplay, the fully stacked R5 Blackcliff would outdamage a R1 Wolf's Gravestone. This is due to the 72% attack boost granted from the passive. Mixing in the high crit damage stat, you get a very strong weapon that will be reliable against multiple enemies in domains and in Spiral Abyss when the passive is activated. However, the weapon will underperform against bosses and low population domains because of the inability to get stacks. With that in mind, this weapon isn't completely obsolete without stacks. I do believe that it is the strongest 4-star Claymore in the game even without the passive. It will definitely help you achieve a better crit rate to crit damage ratio, which is super valuable. In this case, the Wolf's Gravestone will obviously be more consistent and overall better for Diluc, but knowing that most people don't own it, I can only recommend you to use the Blackcliff Slasher and try to get refinements on it if you enjoy its playstyle. Pushing it to R5 isn't necessary, but it will make it compete with its best in slot weapon, which is surprising but welcome. In conclusion, the damage comparison seems to favor the Wolf's Gravestone in scenarios where it's impossible to build stacks. It will consistently outdamage the other contenders, and the passive will grant you an extra attack boost to your entire party. To me, that makes Gravestone a clear winner, but if it isn't accessible to you, then the close second is the Blackcliff Slasher, which is the best alternative in my opinion. Now that we have established the best options, I will leave you guys with some gameplay of each weapons in the Abyss. Enjoy, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.